Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, and I would say that generally speaking, this is a brewery that's just a kind of solid all-round brewery. If you're going to try some of the beers, pick a style that you like and you will be in for a nice example of that style, I would say. And it's always nice for me to come home and find that they've released a new beer, and it's one of the latest additions to their core range that we're going to have a look at today. So hopefully this is another good one, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review we are going to go to a little place called Kippen to the northwest of Stirling, which is where I was born. Very historic town that I do recommend you visit if you make your way to Scotland. But we're going to have a look at another beer from Fallon Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Switch. It comes in at 4.8% ABV, and they're describing this one as a hazy pale ale. So I guess we could also call this one a New England pale ale as well. But this is a fairly recent addition to their core range. As I said, I think this was actually released at the start of the year. I'm sure that I saw this one was released just after I left Scotland. In about February or so, actually. I think it was released back then. But yeah, I've heard good things about this one. It's supposed to be a really nice, easy drinker, so hopefully that's what we get in the review with this one. But always cool to try the new beers from Fallon, so let's crack on with this one and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fallon Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see some more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but quite regular at the moment because I am at home in the motherland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fallon Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So, Fallon Brewing was established by Paul Fallon and his wife Karen, and Paul is a former home brewer who has subsequently turned professional. Quite a common story when it comes to craft breweries. But they bought the brewery site back in 2012 in the engine shed part of the old Kippen railway station, just near Stirling, like I said, to the northwest of the city, and it's in the vicinity of the Fintry Hills and Gargunnock. Quite a scenic area actually. But this station closed back in 1934, but it was one of the busiest on the Forth and Clyde Railway because of two local creameries, a sandstone quarry, a tile and brick factory, and just general tourism, because it is very scenic actually. It's quite unfortunate that a number of these old railways have shut down, because I would bet you these days they would actually be used quite a lot. But initially, to reduce the start-up costs and also to determine what kind of brew kit they wanted to buy, Paul was brewing his beers under contract at Traditional Scottish Ales, which is now known as the Black Wolf Brewery, which you'll find near Throsk in Stirling. But the first beers were produced at their own brewery in April of 2014, and they've continued to expand since then. Over the course of 2016, they built a new building at the brewery to increase their capacity, and they also installed a canning line in early 2017, and they've just gradually scaled up the production levels over the last few years. If you go and check out my old reviews that I did, the very first beers that I had from Fallon Brewing Company were in bottles, and then back a couple of years back we had the 330 cans, and more recently they've converted them into the 440s, which is great. But apparently all of the beers are vegetarian and vegan friendly, and the brewery runs off 100% green energy as well, which is cool. But according to Untappd, as of September 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced over 20 different kinds of beer, and they always seem to have, they've got a fairly steady core range that they keep. And they also do quite a few collaborations and experimental brews as well, and if those go well, they tend to eventually come out in the core range as well actually. So yeah, quite a nice little brewery this one. I wouldn't be surprised if that number that I have from Untappd is inaccurate. I think the exact number when I looked at it was 18, but I would think that these guys have released more than 18 different kinds of beer. So I think that number has to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, because they've done quite a few experimental beers, they've done a good number of collaborations and things, so something tells me that that number of 18 or 20 different beers isn't quite right. But do correct me on that if you know better. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Fallon Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And I have to say, I would like to do an interview with Paul Fallon at some point. So maybe that's something we can set up as a Meet the Brewery segment at some point in the future. But yeah, I'll need to see about that when I'm home in October. I might drop them an email and see how that goes. But yeah, let's crack on with the beer then and get on with the tasting. So to give you the details of this beer from the website, it says this one is a New England Pale Ale. It's hopped with Citra, Equinox, Simcoe and Enigma, all hops that we know quite well. So Citra, 14% alpha acid, American, lots of mango and lots of kind of citrusy elements to it. Equinox, again American. I think that one's about 13 or 14% alpha acid too. That gives you a lot of limey character. Simcoe, also American, about 12% alpha acid. Lovely kind of smooth passion fruity notes, especially in a sort of New England type beer like this, but it can be a bit different in West Coasters and in black IPAs as well. Enigma is an Australian hop, 14% alpha acid. It gives you lots of kind of green grape and gooseberry, but also a little bit of a kind of red curranty. Don't know if you can see quite cranberry, but it gives you a little bit of a kind of Nelson Sauvin, but with red berry type quality to it. But the malt base in this one apparently is lager malt, rye malt, pinhead oatmeal, and Cara Gold. So this should be kind of interesting actually. I don't know how many New England style beers I've had that have oatmeal in them actually. I know of oat cream, but oatmeal is a first for me, I think, when it comes to the New England side of things. But like I say, this is a brewery that do some very solid beers, so I do have quite high confidence that we're going to get a nice beer out of this. And I saw that recently they've also released a beer called Momentum, which is a full-on New England IPA rather than just a pale ale. But yeah, this should be quite nice. But just a little quick look at the artwork for you before we open this one up. Let me just bring it over to the camera side so you can see. There is the Fallon Brewing Company symbol. They've got this lovely artwork on here as well. I think it did say, I forget the guy's name, but it's a friend of theirs. That's it, Zion Capassi. He's a friend of Paul Fallon's, and he was commissioned to do the artwork from what I understand. But yeah, plain silver cap on this one, which I think is very nice. But yeah, 4.8% ABV. It tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. It says switch, a smooth base of pale malts and oats yield a soft pillowy texture, while liberal dry hopping leaves this bursting with flavours and aromas of ripe mango and guava. The delicate bitterness follows tropical fruits to take centre stage in this juicy, hazy, refreshing pale ale. But yeah, also tells you a little bit about Fallon Brewing Company down there as well, but we've also been through that quite a lot. But just take a little closer look. Let me just make the camera focus. There you go. You can take a little look. You can see it's sort of railway orientated there. You can see the hills and things like that, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, 4.8% pale ale, this one, New England pale ale like that. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. If I remember rightly, oh, it's gone a little bit crazy, but it's not exploding. Yeah, this one, if I remember rightly, it was I think maybe Danny McFadden of Sofa King Drunk 66 was telling me that this was a very nice beer. I'm sure he reviewed this one. But I saw this one, as I say, just after I left Scotland earlier on in the year, and I wanted to try it. I was quite gutted. They just released it at the wrong time for me, unfortunately. But what can you do? That happens when you're an expat. But yeah, there we go. So, head on this one's a little bit crazy. I hope this hasn't been sitting too long, actually. Could just be that I bumped it on the worktop or something as I was taking out the fridge. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, looks very nice actually. So let's have a little look at the appearance of this beer. So as you can see, the head on this one's gone a little bit crazy, but it's not too bad. You can see there's about just under 2 fingers of a frothy. I'd say that's a perfect white head, but you can see it's quite bumpy towards the top. If I just bring that up to the camera, still in awe of this new camera. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, focus on it's beautiful. You can see that already. But yeah, looks absolutely great. In terms of colour, I would say that this one is a lovely kind of medium yellow. It's kind of leaning towards amber a little bit. I think it looks a little bit more like a kind of matte yellow to you guys, just looking at the screen over there. But yeah, it looks pretty fabulous, I have to say. I do like that. It's not the haziest and the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that we've come across, but you have to remember in this case that it's a pale ale, so the malt content isn't quite as high. But remember, when it comes to beer, the colour of your beer is determined by 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The type of malts determine the magnitude of the colour. The length of the wort boil can make the beer slightly darker, and that the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. A pale ale like this is probably going to undergo a wort boil of between 60 to 90 minutes. So yeah, the level of haze in these beers as well is going to be determined by the oat and the wheat content, I guess the yeast as well. You could say, and incidentally, this beer uses a Windsor yeast apparently, which I hadn't heard of. So I'm guessing some kind of, by Windsor, English yeast basically. But yeah, certainly it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of pale ales, New England pale ales that I've come across before, but it's got a good level of haze to it. So yeah, the level of haze isn't the most important thing, of course. It is the flavour, but we're just making observations, obviously. But yeah, actually, I've seen kind of more West Coast beers that are the same level of haziness as this one, but it certainly looks very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, nothing untoward with this beer in terms of its colour or appearance. This is pretty much what you would expect when a beer is termed as a hazy pale ale. So yeah, let's crack on with the aroma then and see how we go. That does smell quite nice, actually. It comes across, first impression of it is that it's got that, really soft, just white bready character out of it. It comes very nice, actually, on the aroma. Yeah. Now I'm really curious about this beer because these guys do a good they do a good IPA, they do a good pale ale. Probably one of my favourite beers. My 2 favourite beers from these guys, I would say, would be the Platform C, which is their kind of old school classic West Coast IPA, and also the Choo Choo, which is a salted caramel stout, if I remember. Salted caramel stout. There might be something else in it. That's what I'm trying to think of. But yeah, Choo Choo is probably my favourite. But yeah, that's a really well respected stout, I have to say, in Scotland. Actually, it's one of the classic sweet stouts here in Scotland. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice, and as I say, I've got high hopes for this one. But yeah, the first impression of it is it's kind of soft and juicy. There's a nice little bit of grassiness to it. It's got a nice green component and a smooth kind of bready backbone. That's the first impression of it. But let's delve into it a little bit more. I think this is just going to be a kind of nice, easy drinker. But when it is a pale ale rather than an IPA, that's what you expect. Pale ales are meant to be just nice drinkers rather than kind of in-your-face big beasts. But yeah, that is very nice. So like I said, the backbone of this beer is a really soft, kind of white bready sort of thing. The lager malt, we know that this beer has a bit of lager malt in it. You can smell a wee bit of crispness there towards the back of the nose. But I think the lager malt does take a little bit of a back seat almost. You just get a little bit of a kind of crispness out of the beer. It's got a soft white bready base to it. This one, you do get little elements of bread crust in there. And yeah, you can smell wee bits of, you can smell a little bit of the kind of smooth oaty character in this one as well. But I'm surprised that there's not a little bit more of the rye showing in this one, because this beer, as I say, it does have a little bit of rye in it. So I thought it would have been a little bit more grainy than it is. Yeah, it's not overly grainy. It's actually very smooth, as I say, soft white bread. Wee bit of a kind of lager malty crispness out of it, actually. You do get a wee tiny hint of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit out of this one as well. But yeah, it's quite straight shooting in the malt base. As we say, pale ales, not the biggest malt contents, and at 4.8%, that makes sense. But yeah, soft white bread, little bit of bread crust, wee bit of lager malty crispness, pardon me, in there, and you've also got a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to this beer as well, which I can appreciate. So yeah, everything you'd expect from a nice pale ale, actually. But let's focus on the hoppy side of this beer then. So on the green component, there is a teeny little bit of earthiness there, but not a lot. All of the hops that are involved in this one are not known for their earthiness, actually. But there is a wee bit of earthiness in there. There's a nice big floral aromatic note to this one. I'd say it's quite a deep floral aromaticity, but I actually get quite a lot of grassiness off this beer, and quite a zesty grassiness at that. So for me, the green component, while it's quite well balanced, I would say that it really leans more towards, it's got quite a bright floral aromaticity, but it's also got quite a zesty, kind of grassy note to it as well. So yeah, I like how that, I do like how that goes together in this beer actually, it really is very, very nice. Yeah, I think this is going to be good. I'm getting quite excited about this one now. But on the fruity side of things, there's actually quite a lot going on in this one. It has got quite a diverse fruity base to it, and with Citra, Simcoe, Equinox, Enigma in it, you would kind of expect that. So yeah, for me, there is quite a wee bit of passion fruit coming out of this one. That'll be the Citra and the Simcoe that are giving you that. It does have a fair wee bit of pungency actually. So you can smell that slight pungency of the passion fruit in there. But you've got quite a soft mango-y note to it, absolutely. There are one or two, you will get one or two wee hints of apricot in there, but I'd say, it is passion fruit and mango, a soft mango that's sitting in this one. But it's got quite a bit of citrusy character to it, this I would say. You can smell a wee bit of that kind of oily, gooseberry, white grapey sort of thing, which will be the Enigma. But there's quite a lot of lime, and that's the Equinox that's giving you that. I do think this one might be a little bit more heavy on the Equinox, because I get a lot of limey character out of this one actually. And it's, in fairness, it is fairly balanced, but I get, as I say, you get quite a bit of passion fruit, but you can smell the oily gooseberry underneath, and quite a bit of limey character this one. The limey notes sort of play into the grassy elements of the beer, but you do also get just a wee hint of that kind of red curranty sort of thing that you'd expect from Enigma as well. Actually, I need to see if I can find an Enigma single hop beer and get a proper vibe of what Enigma's all about. But I know that it's I think I've had one a long time ago and really liked it, and that's just stuck with me. So yeah, I think that's something that I do need to look into a bit more. But Enigma is a lovely hop, and I recommend that if you like Nelson Sauvin, if you like Hallertau Blanc, then Enigma is another hop that you want to check out. It's kind of similar, but just with a little bit of a red fruity hint to it. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one then. So this is the Switch, a 4.8% New England Pale Ale from Fallon Brewing Company in Kippen near Stirling here in central Scotland. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, again, it's pretty solid and pretty drinkable. Yeah, it's a really solid, just easy drinking beer, this. Now, the first question would be, is it my favourite beer that I've had from Fallon? And I'd say, part of the thing with my favourite beers, it's always a little bit of nostalgia in there. So I think for me, to take Platform C and Choo Choo off the top spot would be quite a task for this brewery, I have to say, because those are very well respected, really solid beers. And as I say, you've got the nostalgia element there. I've got breweries over in Sweden that I drink new beers from all the time that are really good, but you always remember the first good beer that you had from a brewery, and that's what keeps you going back to the same brewery again. So asking me about favourite beers probably isn't the best thing to do, but I will say they've done another solid beer here, and you can't really ask for much more than that, to be honest with you. This is just a nice, easy drinking New England Pale Ale, very, very solid. I do want to try their New England IPA though and see how that compares to Platform C, and I'd love to do Platform C as a collaboration review with the likes of Don's Beer Reviews and Sofa King Drunk. I think that would be really nice to do some Scottish collaboration reviews actually. But yeah, another solid beer from these guys. The last one I had actually from Fallon Brewing, I think, was the Sleeper Pills, and we also had a sort of sour raspberry version of one of their stouts actually, and I think there was another, I think we did a collaboration brew that they did with Fierce, a Scotch ale actually, if I remember rightly. But yeah, there's a couple of other beers. I need to try the Odyssey, which is their blonde ale, and I also need to try Locomotive. I've never tried those two actually, because when I've been home, I've always gone for the new stuff that's just released. So I need to try and get those two classic ones done actually at some point. So yeah, this gets a thumbs up though. yeah, this would be a really nice beer, I think, to have on tap, actually. And I have to say, I noticed with the sleeper pills as well, these guys do, their sessionable beers are actually um, pretty nice, actually. So let's break this one down for you then. So middle third of the palate, you can feel that nice, soft, kind of white bready, bread crusty character. That goes across the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate. So bread crusty notes, soft white bread kind of sitting on top of that. The further you go into the aftertaste, you will maybe get a very slight woody note out of this one on the front half of that middle third of your palate. Just very, very slight woody character, but I think it works. But yeah, in terms of the other malty characters, this one, that's really the backbone that goes across the middle and the back third of your palate, but we'll focus on the middle third of your palate for the moment. So I would say actually that towards the back of that middle third of your palate, you do actually get a wee bit more of the kind of rye malty character coming out of this one. And the further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel a little bit of that sort of rye graininess, brown bready character coming out of this one. And yeah, that's a bit more apparent towards the back of that middle third of your palate. But as I say, further forward, there's a wee bit of woody character sitting underneath that. But on top of it, you can feel that kind of, I don't want to say if I say sludgy, it sounds like a little bit, it sounds more of a negative word, but you can feel that kind of smooth but sludgy oatmeal-y character in the middle of your palate with this one. It's quite different to putting, regular oats in the beer. So this beer, as a pale ale, as a New England pale ale, or a hazy pale ale, it actually does come across as it comes across quite differently, to be honest. It's almost got a little bit of the graininess you'd expect of a traditional kind of cask beer here in Scotland, actually. So this is quite an interesting one. It's quite a quirky pale ale in some respects, but it works. It does work, actually. What I'll also say is that on top, the kind of oatmeal-y notes, it's almost like you've got a kind of, it's either down the middle line of your palate or it's kind of right in the centre. You can just get that kind of circle, and that's where all the kind of oatmeal-y type things come out beyond that. But on top of that, you do have a nice, you can feel a little bit of a kind of brown sugary note there, and that's the booziness of the beer, obviously. At 4.8% ABV, that is definitely within pale ale range. There's no arguing about that. But this beer actually does feel a little bit boozy in a sense. I do actually get a wee bit of kind of booziness out of this one, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that's maybe just from the thickness of the oatmeal or what, but that's the variable that's a bit different in this one. So that's what it could be. But as you move out from the centre of your palate in this one, you certainly get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity vibe to this one. But it's quite an interesting pale ale, because I think it's the oatmeal that really separates this one, because it just feels a little bit thicker and sort of oily in a sense in the middle of your palate there, but you get the nice smoothness out of it anyway. I've never really, as I said earlier, I've never really heard of oatmeal being used in a lighter beer. It's always an oatmeal stout, isn't it? So yeah, I think these guys would do a very good oatmeal stout incidentally, so that might be something for them to look at in the future. But yeah, the malty character in this one is quite interesting for sure. But I like it. I do like this. So I think we can leave it at that for the middle third of the palate, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's focus on the back third of your palate then. So as we say, base of the beer is quite bread crusty. Top of that, you get the thicker white bread. You can actually feel the oatmeal kind of spreads back a little bit on this one, and you can feel a wee bit more of a kind of rye, grainy character on that back third of your palate as well. So the bread crusty character actually feels a little bit more grainy and rye-like. Top of that, as we say, the white bread, and then you can feel the oatmeal notes sitting on top of that. But then on top of all of that, you've got a little bit more of that kind of airy, yeasty character there. So as we always say, from the back of the palate, as you move further forward, you can feel the flavour just condenses down a little bit, and as you go into the middle third of your palate, it just squashes down, actually. So yeah, you can feel that happen in this beer, but that's something that we notice in quite a lot of beers, actually. But yeah, I think we can focus on the hoppy side of things then. But this is quite an interesting beer from the malty perspective, if you consider what's going on. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, I do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one, and as I say, that's not something you normally associate with the particular hops in this one, Citra, Simcoe, Equinox, Enigma. but as you move further forward along the sides of your palate, you can feel it does have quite a nice floral aromaticity to it. It feels a little bit deep actually. You do get a little hint of that very deep floral aromaticity out of this one. It's got a wee bit of spice right on the front kind of corners of the palate. So I do like that about this beer. So yeah, fruity wise as well, this one goes together really well, but we'll come to that in a second. But yeah, nice deep floral aromaticity. You have to remember with New England type beers, these ones, they tend to rely a little bit more on late addition and dry hopping, which are the ones that give you more flavour and aroma. It's the early addition hops that give you the bitterness. So New Englands are not the most bitter style, but I think this one might have a fair wee bit of early addition hop in it, because of the depth of the green component that you get in this one. Because the further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel a deeper and deeper floral aromaticity coming out of this beer, which I do like. But round the front curve of the palate, it's got a little bit of a lighter grassy character to it, a little touch of zestiness there. But the real diversity of this beer comes when you look at the fruity side of things. So let's look at that front third of your palate. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a bready build up in there. You can feel there's a wee bit of a kind of bread, crusty, grainy sort of thing, but the base of that front third of your palate is quite a soft, airy white bread. That's there, but on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So on the back half of that front third of your palate, then you're getting the tropical fruits. At the very back you're getting a slightly more concentrated, pungent passion fruit, but as you move further forward you're getting the softer mango notes from the Citra. I think the passion fruit's coming from both the Simcoe and the Citra in this one, although in fairness I think probably Simcoe in these New England hazy type beers, it will give you a kind of softer character rather than the more oily character you'll get in the West Coasters and the red fruity notes it gives you in black IPAs as well. But there are one or two hints of lighter tropical fruits in there, but I'd say no, it's a soft, for me it's a mango-y note that you get out of this and just a wee bit of passion fruit behind it, but the soft mango is the dominant tropical fruit flavour. As you move into the front half of the front third of your palate with this one, you get the more kind of citrusy leaning fruits, I would say. So with this one, you definitely get, I would say that the tropical fruit actually creeps into the front half of that front third of your palate quite a bit, but then the base of the front third of your palate is a more oily, gooseberry, white, grapey sort of thing. That's the enigma that's giving you that. But then on top of that, you can feel there is quite a zesty, limey character to this one, and that's Equinaut that's giving you that. The kind of limey notes sort of merged together with the kind of grassy, zesty notes that you have on the front tip of the palate with this beer. So yeah, it works quite well. I don't get too much of that kind of red fruity kind of thing that you can often get from Enigma. There's a wee hint of it, just kind of right in the dead centre, I would say, of that front half of the front third of your tongue, front sixth of your tongue, if you will. But yeah, there's just a wee hint of the red fruity notes you get from Enigma, but I do think that takes a bit of a back seat. So I like how this one, I do like how this one goes about its business in that sense. I'm just trying to see if it comes out a wee bit more. So if you take a slightly bigger gulp of it, it will give you a wee bit more of that red fruity note, but I would stick with that. I'd say the fruity side of things, passion fruit, bit of mango, oily gooseberry underneath, but quite a zesty lime and just a wee touch of that red fruity note. So it gives you what you'd expect from these hops, but I think it's actually it's the lime. I think I've got a feeling the Equinaut might have been a bit more heavily used in this beer than the other hops, in fairness, because it's the passion fruit, but if you've got two passion fruity hops in there, that makes sense, so that comes out a bit more. It's the passion fruit and the lime, I think, that stand out a wee bit more to me in this one. But whatever it is, I think it works. But let's round off this review with the mouthfeel then. So definitely, I'd say it's, bottom end of mid-bodied for me. I'd say that's where this one kind of sits, but you expect that from a pale ale. So yeah, kind of mid-bodied, bottom end of mid-bodied. Smooth carbonation. This beer does have a wee bit of oily character to it as well, which I like. You can feel the cleanliness of the local water. We're very proud of our tap water in Scotland, as I always tell you. But in terms of hoppy bitterness and things, I think this is a fairly standard 25-30 IBU beer. Don't think there's no doubt in my mind about that really, but it has a wee bit of zestiness which might make it feel a little bit more bitter, as we say. But the malt base is, as I said, a little bit of graininess, nice bit of smoothness to it, not the sweetest of malt bases. The other thing that I think I forgot to focus on a little bit is that this beer has the lager malt in it, so you do feel a little bit of that kind of crispness towards the back of that middle third of your palate. You will feel a little bit of that crispness from the kind of the lager malt that's in this. So I was going to say Pilsner malt there, but I think it's kind of the graininess, the slight graininess that you get out of this beer in the malt base masks that a little bit, to be fair, now that I think about it. But yeah, there's a wee bit of sweetness in there as well, and as we've said, you've got a nice balance between tropical fruit and more kind of and more sort of zesty zesty citrusy fruit, I guess we could say as well. For me, lime and passion fruit seem to be the most prominent things in this beer. But as we say, another solid beer from Fallon Brewing Company. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this. I do hope that I can try the Momentum at some point. So hopefully I can get a can of that either now or when I'm back home in October again. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. So this one is the Switch, 4.8% ABV, Hazy, New England, whatever you want to call it, Paleo, from Fallon Brewing in Kippen, near Stirling here in central Scotland. Let's leave it there. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out theirs. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fallon Brewing, but do make sure you go and check out some of the beers. Choo Choo and Platform C, for me, are the two kind of classic beers that these guys do, and I think you would enjoy those. But thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys very soon.